The last speaker is this session, Enrique ARAGON and Andrea SANZ. Their presentation is the Formentera Island Project Maritime Cultural Heritage Research and Conservation. Yes, please.
Okay, so thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for the invitation, and thank you to the organization for accept my paper or our paper. So today I'm presenting in the name of Balearic Institute of Maritime Archaeology. I'm presenting some details on the activity that we have been developing in the last 5 years in Spain. Also, I'd like to introduce Andrea SANZ, underwater conservator, who has played a pivotal role in this project and who will share a few words about the underwater conservation program attached to EVM. So, despite the long tradition in the field of underwater cultural heritage in the Balearic Islands, with early experiences during the 70s, it's remarkable how this archipelago is still missing a management plan and a research plan to understand, protect, and disseminate its underwater cultural heritage. Over the last 5 years, we have seen maritime cultural heritage unprotected, being exposed to deterioration and having substantial damage in consequence. Sorry. Okay. So since 2015, the IBM is developing a research program based on UNESCO 2001 Convention precepts. We have been developing several projects in the different islands that conform the archipelago, but today the presentation focuses on Formentera Island project that I'm going to use as a case of study to better understand the proposed approach in the management of underwater and maritime cultural heritage in the Balearic context. So, Formentera Island project has revealed an essential number of results that have changed the perception of underwater archaeology along the island. Before 2015, the experiences of the underwater archaeological heritage were reduced to a couple of archaeological sites. The first of these was an intervention promoted by the local authorities in 2003, motivated by news from sport divers who declared having seen archaeological remains. Resulting of this intervention were the discovery of a dispersed group of amphoras dated in the late 3rd century AD. The second archaeological site is the so-called Sapedrera shipwreck, dated in the 4th century AD, and that was found at 77 meters depth. So despite the underwater archaeological remains around the island were demonstrating an interesting potential, Formentera Island was facing a lack in the management of the underwater or maritime cultural heritage. So in this sense, in order to cover this need, in 2014, the Formentera Island project was proposed, and in 2015, an agreement between IBM and the local authorities allowed the start of the research project. So the main goal of this project, therefore, was the creation of a strategy of protection, management, research, and cultural dissemination that will help us go beyond punctual research projects. So the proposal from IBM to build an active strategy in the management of underwater and maritime cultural heritage, it was based to position the research team in the center of the contact between external actors and local actors. External actors like universities, companies, research centers, with local authorities, business, and and also the population itself. So this commitment has been achieved with the continuous development of research campaigns, but above all, it's being achieved through training courses at different levels. Of course, we have like a clear result of these 5 years projects results in the area of intensive research and the creation of an appropriate infrastructure to undertake this research, and the consequence of a several number of publications. But as I said before, one of the main points we have been developing in the island is the creation of a number of different experiences closely linked to education, but not just for a very close or a very narrow number of people. We were thinking to open this experience to different levels. So we have been doing courses for primary schools with creative experiences for the kids, to high schools, so junior students can engage through the diverse centers with the maritime cultural heritage. And finally, we have been engaging the university through academical courses. So you can see on the right of the screen in the presentation our last experience with the Tokyo University that was last January. So all these 3 experiences were very important to not only obviously have opened the opportunity to develop some like internal experience between the students and the professors, but also to create engagement with the local population. So today, because the time I don't gonna spend much more time talking about the archaeology itself, because I think it's more important to present one aspect that it's being really interesting to give some cohesion, but also some continuity and consistency to this project, which is the conservation program. And to do that, I would like to introduce Andrea. I don't know if she's in here. Hello. So she seems like she's not here, so I'm gonna continue with the conservation part.
Andrea?
Is she here now? Probably not. Okay, no worries. I'm just gonna share again my screen and continuing with this. Okay, so the conservation program, like I say, like EBM has 2 very well-defined lines of research. One is the one I just presented, the archaeological path, but we were thinking to introduce continuously growing field of conservation program together with every project we are starting to develop. So all the archaeological intervention from EBM follows the European criteria and policies established and ratified both in Valletta Treaty 1992 as well as UNESCO 2001. I will present a quick overview of few archaeological sites. Very briefly, just comment the challenges that, based on a visual inspection, these sites are presenting for future conservation. So starting with a Roman-Punic site we found in Formentera, This wreck shows scattered archaeological remains on a rocky bottom together with a large area of Posidonia. A fully amphora was just on the surface of this archaeological site. We found also just on the surface stone mill and part of the wooden structure of the shipwreck. So everything was very exposed, and the main question is how these different stratigraphy acts directly to the archaeological sites. So there are several questions regarding to conservation we should ask in here. It's just about the Posidonia and how it's protecting or affecting the wooden structure. So at the end, for this specific project, we did cover the wooden structure, but for artifacts that were exposed on the surface of the archaeological site, we decided just to make a very quick intervention to prevent any kind of looting or loss of this kind of artifacts. Rapidly, I want to talk about the next site. Like we found this Byzantine anchor, and with the Byzantine anchor was completely adhered to the rocky surface and also covered by Posidonia. But this Posidonia is kind of live stratigraph, because during the summer it's covered pretty well. It's the entire area, so it's acting as a protection of the archaeological site. Whether in winter this area is more exposed, because the Posidonia have a tendency to just disappear. So the entire area is quite exposed, and definitely it's a challenge for to protect the area from any kind of damage. Unfortunately, like the anchor is already damaged in one of the sides, and the concretion is so heavy that it's the next action on there is probably gonna need to be well studied. The next site with a very similar circumstances like the Byzantine shipwreck is like a 16th century site, where the main feature here is a big anchor we have found in a very bad condition. Again, this kind of site is exposing a very alive dynamic due to the Posidonia, and again is sharing the same complication like the previous archaeological site. So it's a kind of challenge for conservation, how we can protect this area and what is going to be the plan in early future. Finally, I want to talk about the 19th century shipwreck we found also as a result of the Formentera Island project. This is a very peculiar case, because in this site were found 17 French sables disappear in an extensive, dispersed in an extensive zone. This site, compared with the others, shows a very several differences. The first difference is like the sea bottom is and the stratigraphy is composed basically of sand, a very fine sand. The second is the proximity to the coast, and in consequence the high risk of looting and loss. So for this case, we have to act very quickly and very direct. So the excavation was just immediately co-directed or co-joined with the conservation plan. And what we did was just to prepare, together with the Museum of Ibiza, the entire protocol to not just make the excavation, but straight away to have the extraction of the artifacts and prepare a long-term conservation and finally restoration, because the artifacts looks in a very good state of conservation. So that's all for me today. I want to thank you again, everyone, for the invitation. Well, that's all. Thanks again.